My brother stood up during my wedding reception, tapped his champagne glass, and said the words that made 200 guests go completely silent. She can't even have kids, so at least Mark won't have to deal with that burden. My husband froze beside me, his hand tightening around mine. I felt my face burn, my throat close, every eye in the room turning toward me with pity or shock or something worse. But I didn't cry. I didn't run. I smiled, looked straight at him, and said, "Congratulations on your announcement, Ryan. I'll be sure to return the favor." 6 months later at his baby shower, I did exactly that. What I revealed made his wife drop her cake plate, made my mother gasp, and made Ryan's face drain of all color. I'm Claire, 32 years old, and for most of my life I was the responsible one, the one who cleaned up messes, who kept secrets, who absorbed the blows so everyone else could stay comfortable. My younger brother Ryan was the golden child, charming, loud, the center of every room. He could do no wrong. I spent years protecting him, covering for him, sending money when he needed it, lying to our parents when he messed up. That night at my wedding, he crossed a line he could never uncross. What I did at his baby shower wasn't revenge. It was simply the truth finally spoken out loud. If you've ever had someone humiliate you in front of everyone you love, especially on a day that was supposed to be yours, hit like so this story reaches more people who need to hear what happened when the secrets finally came out. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand how deep this goes. Growing up, Ryan and I lived in the same house, but occupied completely different worlds. He was 3 years younger, but you would never know it from the way our parents treated him. His bedroom was larger, his birthday parties elaborate, his mistakes forgiven with a shrug, and a boys will be boys. My own achievements were acknowledged with a nod, then quickly overshadowed by whatever Ryan had done that week. When I graduated high school with honors, the dinner conversations centered on Ryan making the JV basketball team. When I got accepted into a state university with a partial scholarship, the celebration lasted 10 minutes before talk shifted to Ryan's upcoming spring break trip. I learned early that my role was to be useful, not celebrated. I became the one who helped with homework, who drove Ryan to parties when he was too drunk to get home safely, who lied to Dad about where he really was on Friday nights. Ryan never asked me to do these things. He simply expected them, the way you expect air to be there when you breathe. Our parents never questioned it either. "Claire will handle it," Mom would say, as if my entire purpose was to be the safety net beneath Ryan's tightrope. I met Mark during my final year of college. He was kind, steady, the type of man who listened when I spoke, who remembered small details, who never made me feel like I was too much or not enough. We dated for 3 years before he proposed, a quiet moment on a hiking trail, just the two of us and the mountains. I said yes immediately, not because I needed saving, but because I had finally found someone who saw me as something other than useful. Planning the wedding became a test of endurance. My parents offered to contribute $5,000, which I appreciated, but when Ryan mentioned he wanted to start a business selling custom car parts, they handed him $15,000 without hesitation. I didn't complain. I had learned long ago that fairness was not a concept that applied to me. Mark and I paid for most of the wedding ourselves, a small venue, a simple ceremony, 200 guests including family, friends, and coworkers. The day itself was beautiful. September sunlight streaming through tall windows, white flowers everywhere, my dress simple but elegant. Mark stood at the altar with tears in his eyes as I walked down the aisle. For 3 perfect hours, I felt like the center of my own life. Then came the reception. Dinner was served, toasts began. My maid of honor spoke about our friendship, made everyone laugh, made me cry happy tears. Mark's best man told a story about how Mark knew within 2 weeks that he wanted to marry me. Then Ryan stood up. He wasn't scheduled to give a toast. No one had asked him to speak, but he grabbed a microphone, smiled that wide, charming smile, and started talking. He congratulated us, said something generic about love and commitment, and then his tone shifted. "You know, Mark, you're a lucky guy," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "Claire's always been the responsible one, the one who takes care of everyone. And hey, bonus, she can't even have kids, so at least you won't have to deal with that burden. You can just enjoy each other." The room went silent. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died mid-sentence. I felt 200 pairs of eyes turn toward me. Mark's hand went rigid in mine. My mother's face flushed red. My father looked down at his plate. Ryan kept smiling, as if he had just delivered a hilarious punchline, as if he had done me a favor by airing my private medical situation in front of everyone I knew. I had been diagnosed with endometriosis 2 years earlier. The doctor had explained that getting pregnant would be difficult, perhaps impossible without intervention. I had cried in Mark's arms that night, mourned the future I had imagined, then slowly accepted it. Mark and I had talked about adoption, about fostering, about building a life that didn't hinge on biology. It was private, painful, and ours. Until Ryan made it public. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. I felt Mark start to stand, ready to defend me, but I squeezed his hand and stood up first. I looked directly at Ryan, my voice calm and clear. "Congratulations on your announcement, Ryan. I'll be sure to return the favor." Then I sat down, picked up my fork, and took a bite of salmon. The room slowly resumed, awkward conversations restarting, people pretending they hadn't just witnessed something ugly. Ryan sat down, still smiling, oblivious or uncaring. Mom leaned over and whispered, "He didn't mean it like that," as if there were some charitable interpretation of what had just happened. The rest of the reception blurred. I smiled, I danced, I cut the cake. But inside, something had shifted. I had spent my entire life protecting Ryan, absorbing his chaos, covering his mistakes. And this was how he repaid me, with public humiliation on the one day that was supposed to be mine. The weeks after the wedding were strange and quiet. Mark and I left for our honeymoon the next morning, a week in a small coastal town where we could walk on the beach and pretend the world consisted only of the two of us. He never brought up what Ryan had said, not because he had forgotten, but because he knew I needed time to process it without pressure. When we returned home, I found 3 voicemails from my mother. The first asked how the honeymoon was. The second mentioned that Ryan felt bad about the toast. The third said I was being dramatic by not calling back. I deleted all 3. Ryan sent a single text 2 weeks later. "Sorry if I upset you at the wedding. Didn't think you'd take it so seriously. Not an apology, just an accusation disguised as regret." I didn't respond. Life moved forward the way it does, work, groceries, dinners with Mark, quiet evenings on the couch. But beneath the surface, something was building. I had always been the one who absorbed, who forgave, who moved on for the sake of peace. This time felt different. Then 3 months after my wedding, Ryan called. His voice was bright, excited, bursting with news. "Claire, I have to tell you something. Jessica's pregnant. We're having a baby." Jessica was his girlfriend of 2 years, sweet, soft-spoken, the kind of person who apologized when someone else bumped into her. I liked her, felt sorry for her sometimes, the way she looked at Ryan like he hung the moon. "Congratulations," I said, my voice neutral. "That's exciting." He rattled on about due dates, nursery colors, how Dad had already started building a crib. "Mom's throwing us a baby shower," he added. "You'll come, right? It's in May." I paused, the phone pressed to my ear, the question hanging between us. "Sure," I said, "I'll be there." When I hung up, Mark looked at me from across the kitchen. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "I'm fine," but I wasn't fine. I was thinking. Ryan's baby shower was scheduled for mid-May, a Sunday afternoon at my parents' house. The backyard would be decorated in soft blues and yellows, tables covered in gifts, a cake shaped like a baby carriage. Jessica would sit in the center, glowing and nervous, opening presents while everyone cooed. And I would be there, smiling, playing the role of supportive older sister. Unless I chose something different. The secret I knew about Ryan was not new. I had known it for 7 years, had carried it silently, had protected him the way I always did. It happened when he was 21, still in college, still convinced he was invincible. He had gotten a girl pregnant, a classmate named Lauren. She had told him over the phone, scared and unsure. Ryan's response was immediate and cold. He told her to handle it, gave her $500, and never spoke to her again. I only knew because Lauren had called me, desperate, looking for Ryan, who had blocked her number. She was 8 weeks along, didn't know what to do, had no family support. I met her at a coffee shop, listened to her cry, and helped her figure out her options. She eventually decided on adoption, connected with a family through an agency, and gave birth to a boy the following spring. Ryan never acknowledged it, never asked, never checked if she was okay. He simply erased it and moved on. I had kept that secret for 7 years. I told myself it wasn't my story to tell, that Lauren deserved privacy, that dredging it up would only cause pain. But sitting in my kitchen 3 months after Ryan humiliated me in front of 200 people, I realized something. Keeping his secrets had only ever protected him, never me, never the people he hurt. Comment justice if you believe she deserved to know the truth before marrying into this family. The baby shower arrived on a warm Sunday in May. The backyard looked exactly as I had imagined, pastel balloons tied to the fence, a long table covered in gifts wrapped in soft yellows and blues, a 3-tier cake decorated with tiny fondant baby shoes. Jessica sat in a wicker chair in the center, her belly round and prominent, her face lit with nervous excitement. Ryan stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, accepting congratulations from aunts and uncles and family friends. I arrived with Mark, carrying a gift bag containing baby clothes and a stuffed giraffe. Mom hugged me at the door, her smile tight. "I'm so glad you came," she said, her tone implying she hadn't been sure I would. I smiled back, said nothing, and walked into the backyard. The shower followed the usual script. Games involving guessing baby food flavors, measuring Jessica's belly with ribbon, writing advice on cards. I participated, smiled, laughed at appropriate moments. Ryan caught my eye once, gave me a nod, as if my presence meant all was forgiven, as if we were back to normal. Then came the gift opening. Jessica sat in her chair, Ryan beside her, tearing through packages while someone wrote down who gave what. Onesies, blankets, bottles, a baby monitor, a diaper bag covered in cheerful patterns. Everyone clapped, took photos, offered advice. I waited, my gift still in my lap, my heart beating steady and calm. Finally, Jessica reached for my bag. She pulled out the clothes, held them up, smiled warmly. "These are beautiful, Claire. Thank you." "You're welcome," I said, my voice clear. "There's one more thing in there." She reached into the bottom of the bag and pulled out a small white envelope. She looked at me, confused. Ryan's smile faltered slightly. "Open it," I said gently. Jessica unsealed the envelope, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and began to read. Her face changed slowly, confusion giving way to shock, then something harder. Her hands started to tremble. Ryan leaned over, read over her shoulder, and his face drained of all color. "What is this?" Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's the truth," I said calmly. The paper contained a brief summary, dates, names, a copy of the adoption agency's record showing Ryan listed as the biological father. Lauren had given me permission years ago to use the information if I ever needed to, though at the time neither of us imagined I would. The backyard went silent. Mom stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Claire, what did you do?" I stood up, my voice steady, carrying across the yard. 7 years ago, Ryan got a girl pregnant. Her name was Lauren. He gave her $500, told her to handle it, and then blocked her number. She gave the baby up for adoption. Ryan never told anyone, never checked on her, never acknowledged that child existed. Jessica's hand went to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Ryan stood frozen, unable to speak, his face ashen. Mom's eyes were wide, disbelieving. Dad sat motionless in his chair. I looked directly at Ryan. "You stood up at my wedding and humiliated me in front of everyone I loved. You made my private pain public entertainment. So now I'm doing the same. This is your truth, Ryan. The one you've been hiding while pretending to be someone you're not." Jessica stood up, the paper still clutched in her hand, and walked into the house without a word. Ryan followed her, calling her name, his voice desperate. The backyard remained silent, guests frozen, unsure where to look. Mom turned to me, her face red with fury. "How could you do this? How could you ruin this day?" I met her gaze, my voice calm. "The same way he ruined mine." I didn't stay to watch the fallout unfold. Mark and I walked out of the backyard, through the side gate, and to our car parked down the street. The drive home was quiet, not tense, just still. He reached over and took my hand, squeezed it once, and kept driving. When we got home, I sat on the couch, stared at the wall, and waited for the phone to start ringing. It didn't take long. Mom called first, her voice shaking with rage. "You destroyed everything." Jessica left. She took her things and went to her sister's house. "Ryan is devastated. How could you be so cruel, so vindictive? I didn't raise you to be like this." I listened without interrupting, then spoke quietly. "You raised me to protect Ryan no matter what he did. You raised me to be invisible, to absorb everything, to never make waves. I'm done with that." She sputtered, tried to argue, but I ended the call. Dad called an hour later, his voice tired, disappointed. "This wasn't necessary, Claire. You could have talked to him privately." I agreed. The same way he could have kept my medical history private instead of announcing it to 200 people. But he didn't. So neither did I. Dad sighed, said nothing else, and hung up. Ryan didn't call. He sent a single text late that night. "You're dead to me." I read it, felt nothing, and deleted it. "Type yes if you want to see all targets hit at once." The days that followed were strangely peaceful. I went to work, came home, cooked dinner with Mark, watched movies on the couch. No more phone calls from my parents. No more texts from Ryan. The silence I had always feared turned out to be a relief. Then 2 weeks after the baby shower, Jessica called me. Her voice was small, uncertain. "Claire, it's Jessica. Can we talk? We met at a coffee shop near her sister's apartment." She looked tired, her face pale, dark circles under her eyes. She sat across from me, hands wrapped around a mug of tea, and stared at the table for a long moment before speaking. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "He never told me." "I know," I said. "I'm sorry you found out that way." She looked up, her eyes red. "Why did you do it? I could have lived not knowing." "I considered that, chose my words carefully, because you deserve to know who you're building a life with. Because secrets like that don't stay buried forever, and it's better to know now than 5 years from now when you have a child and a mortgage and it's harder to leave." She flinched at the word leave. "I'm not leaving him. I'm pregnant." "Where would I go?" "You can go anywhere you want," I said gently. "You have options. You have people who love you. You don't have to stay just because it's easier." She wiped her eyes, her voice breaking. "He says you've always hated him, that you've been jealous your whole life, that you made this up to hurt him." "I didn't make it up," I said. "If he's saying that, ask him for proof that it's false. Ask him to call Lauren. Ask him why he never mentioned her." She nodded slowly, then looked at me with something like gratitude mixed with grief. "Thank you for telling me. Even if it hurts, thank you." We finished our coffee in silence. She left first, her hand resting on her belly, her face set with a determination that hadn't been there before. I didn't know what she would choose, but at least now she had all the information. If this shocked you, comment truth below so more people see what happens when secrets come to light. 3 months passed. I heard through a mutual friend that Jessica had moved back in with Ryan, that they were trying to work things out, that a baby was coming whether the foundation was solid or not. I felt sad for her, but I also knew I had done what I could. Some people need to learn their own lessons in their own time. My parents didn't contact me. Ryan didn't contact me. The family group chat that had once been full of dinner plans and holiday coordination went silent. I was effectively erased, and surprisingly, I felt lighter. Mark and I started the process of looking into adoption. We attended orientation sessions, filled out paperwork, talked to social workers about what kind of child we hoped to bring into our home. It was terrifying and exciting, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was building something that belonged entirely to me, not cleaning up someone else's mess. Then in late August, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Claire." The voice was unfamiliar, female, hesitant. "Yes, this is Lauren." Ryan's Lauren. I sat down slowly, my heart picking up speed. "Hi, Lauren." There was a pause, the sound of her breathing. "I heard what you did at the baby shower." Jessica reached out to me. She wanted to know if it was true. I told her it was. Another pause. "Thank you. For 7 years, I thought I was the only one carrying that secret. I thought I was alone in it. Knowing that you knew, that you cared enough to say something, it means more than you know." We talked for an hour. She told me about her life now, married, 2 kids, a job she loved. She said she had made peace with the adoption, that she hoped her son was happy, that she didn't regret her choice. And she said something that stayed with me. "You didn't owe me anything, Claire, but you helped me anyway. That's rare." I told her I was sorry I had waited so long, that I should have said something years ago. She disagreed. "You said it when it mattered. That's enough." When we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my living room, the afternoon light streaming through the windows, and I realized something. For my entire life, I had measured my worth by how well I managed other people's chaos. I had believed that love meant silence, that family meant sacrifice, that being good meant being invisible. Ryan's cruelty at my wedding had shattered that belief. What I did at his baby shower wasn't revenge. It was boundaries. It was choosing truth over comfort. Was refusing to carry someone else's shame while they walked free. Mark came home that evening, found me on the couch, and sat beside me. "You okay?" I smiled, leaned into him. "Yeah, I really am." The final call came in October. Mom, her voice smaller than I had ever heard it. "Claire, I need to tell you something. Ryan and Jessica had the baby, a boy. They named him Connor." I waited, unsure why she was telling me this. "That's good," I said carefully. There was a long silence. Then Jessica left him. 2 weeks after Connor was born, she packed her things, took the baby, and moved across the country to live with her parents. She filed for full custody. Ryan's a mess. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel vindication. I just felt sad for Jessica, sad for Connor, sad for the mess that could have been avoided if Ryan had ever been held accountable. I'm sorry, Mom, I mean that. She was quiet for a moment. You were right. About him, about us, about everything. I've spent 30 years making excuses for him, and I don't know how to stop. You stop by starting, I said gently. You acknowledge it. You do better. We talked for another 20 minutes, the longest real conversation we had had in years. She didn't ask me to forgive Ryan. She didn't ask me to come back. She just listened, and that was enough. When we hung up, I sat with Mark, his arm around me, the evening settling in around us. The story didn't end with fireworks or perfect closure. It ended the way real life does, messy, incomplete, but moving forward. Ryan would have to figure out how to be a father from a distance. Jessica would have to rebuild her life with a newborn and a broken heart. My parents would have to reckon with the patterns they had created. And me? I would keep building the life I wanted, one honest choice at a time. If you made it this far, I need 3 things from you. First, hit that like button so this story reaches people who need to hear that it's okay to stop carrying other people's secrets. Second, comment below and tell me, would you have done the same thing, or would you have stayed silent? I want to know your story. And third, subscribe to this channel because I share real stories about real people setting boundaries and choosing themselves, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. The truth doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it's the only foundation worth building on. I learned that the hard way. Ryan humiliated me when I was at my most vulnerable, on a day that was supposed to be about love and new beginnings. He made my private pain public entertainment. So when his moment came, when he stood in front of everyone pretending to be someone he wasn't, I gave him the same gift he gave me. The truth, loud and undeniable. Some people will say I went too far, that I should have been the bigger person, that family means forgiveness no matter what. But I learned that being the bigger person just meant making myself smaller. And I was done shrinking. The last time I saw Ryan was at a distance, in a grocery store parking lot 6 months later. He was loading bags into his car, moving slowly, looking older than his 29 years. He saw me, froze for a second, then looked away and kept loading. We didn't speak. We didn't wave. We just existed in the same space for 30 seconds, then went our separate ways. And that was fine. Some relationships aren't meant to be repaired. Some people aren't capable of the honesty required to rebuild trust. Ryan was one of those people. I had spent my whole life hoping he would change, that he would see me, that he would care. The wedding taught me he wouldn't. The baby shower taught me I didn't need him to. I had Mark. I had truth. I had myself. That was enough.